Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Welcome all to today's reading from the Nectar of Devotion, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, by His Divine Grace, Bhaktivedanta Prabhupada, originally by Rūpa Gosvāmī. Mukam karoti vachalam, pangum langhete girim yat kripatamam vande shigrum dintarinam paramanandamatvam Shri Chaitanyeshwaram Hariyam Tatsat. Chapter number 8, Offenses to be Avoided. In the supplementary Vedic literature, there is the following list of 32 offenses in the matter of serving the Lord. One should not enter the temple of the deity in a car or palanquin with the shoes on the feet. Second, one should not fail to observe the various festivals for the pleasure of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, such as Janmashtami and Rath Yatra. Third, one should not avoid bowing down before the deity. Fourth, one should not enter the temple to worship the Lord without having washed one's feet and hands after eating. Number 5, one should not enter the temple in a contaminated state. According to Vedic scripture, if someone dies in the family, the whole family should become contaminated for some times according to its status. For example, if the family is Brahman, their contamination period is 12 days. For the Kshatriyas and Vaishyas, it is 15 days, and for Shudras, 30 days. Number 6, one should not bow down on one hand. Number 7, one should not circumambulate in front of Sri Krishna. The process of circumambulating the temple is that one should begin circumambulating from the deity's right hand side of the temple and come around. Such circumambulation should be performed outside the temple structure at least 3 times daily. 8, one should not spread his legs before the deity. Number 9, one should not sit before the deity holding the ankles, elbows or knees with one's hands. Number 10, one should not lie down before the deity of Krishna. Number 11, one should not accept prasad before the deity. Number 12, one should never speak a lie before the deity. Number 13, one should not talk very loudly before the deity. Number 14, one should not talk with the others before the deity. 15, one should not cry or howl before the deity. 16, one should not quarrel or fight before the deity. Number 17, one should not chastise anyone before the deity. Number 18, one should not be charitable to beggars before the deity. 19, one should not speak very harshly to others before the deity. 20, one should not wear a fur blanket before the deity. 21, one should not eulogize or praise anyone else before the deity. 22nd, one should not speak any ill names before the deity. Number 23, one should not pass air before the deity. Number 24, one should not fail to worship the deity according to one's means. In Bhagavad-Gita, it is stated that Lord is satisfied if some devotee offers him even a leaf or little water. This formula prescribed by the Lord is universally applicable even for the poorest man, but that does not mean that one who has sufficient means to worship the Lord very nicely should also adopt this method and try to satisfy the Lord simply by offering water and a leaf. If he has sufficient means, he should offer nice decorations, nice flowers, and nice foodstuffs, and observe all ceremonies. It is not that one should try to satisfy the Supreme Lord with a little water and a leaf, and for himself spend all his money in sense gratification. Number 25, one should not eat anything which is not offered first to Krishna. Number 26, one should not fail to offer fresh fruit and grains to Krishna according to the season. Number 27, after food has been cooked, no one should be offered any foodstuff unless it is first offered to the deity. Number 28, one should not sit with his back toward the deity. Number 29, one should not offer obeisances silently to the spiritual master, or in other words, one should recite aloud the prayers to the spiritual master while offering obeisances. One should not fail to offer some praise in the presence of the spiritual master. Number 31, one should not praise himself before the spiritual master. Number 32, one should not deride the demigods before the deity. This is the list of 32 offenses. Besides this, there are a number of offenses which are mentioned in the Vara Puran. They are as follows. Number 1, one should not touch the deity in a dark room. One should not fail to strictly follow the rules and regulations in worshipping the deity. I'll just read them instead of saying number 1, 2, 3 now. One should not enter the temple of the deity without first making some sound. One should not offer any foodstuff to the deity which has been seen by dogs or other lower animals. One should not break silence while worshipping. One should not pass urine or evacuate while engaged in worshipping. One should not offer incense without offering some flower. Useless flowers without any fragrance should not be offered. One should not fail to wash his teeth very carefully every day. One should not enter the temple directly after any sexual activity. One should not touch a woman during a menstrual period. One should not enter the temple after touching a dead body. One should not enter the temple wearing garments of red or blue color or garments which are unwashed. One should not enter the temple after seeing a dead body. One should not pass air within the temple. One should not be angry within the temple. One should not enter the temple after visiting a crematorium. One should not belch before the deity. So until one has fully digested his food, he should not enter the temple. One should not smoke marijuana or ganja. One should not take opium or similar intoxicants. One should not enter the deity room or touch the body of the deity after having smeared oil over his body. One should not show disrespect to a scripture teaching about the supremacy of the Lord. One should not introduce any opposing scripture. One should not chew betel before the deity. One should not offer a flower which was kept in an unclean pot. One should not worship the Lord while sitting on the bare floor. One must have a sitting place or carpet. One should not touch the deity before one has completed taking bath. One should not decorate his forehead with the 3-line tilak. One should not enter the temple without washing his hands and feet. Other rules are that one should not offer foodstuff which is cooked by a non-Vaishnava. One should not worship the deity before a non-devotee, and one should not engage himself in the worship of the Lord while seeing a non-devotee. One should begin the worship of the demigod Ganpati, who drives away all the impediments in the execution of devotional service. In the Brahma Samhita, it is stated that Ganpati worships the lotus feet of the Lord Nrsimhadev, and in that way has become auspicious for the devotees in clearing out all impediments. Therefore, all devotees should worship Ganpati. The deities should not be bathed in water which has been touched by the nails or fingers. When a devotee is perspiring, he should not engage himself in worshipping the deity. Similarly, there are many other prohibitions. For example, one should not cross or step over the flowers offered to the deities, or should one take a vow in the name of God. These are all different kinds of offenses in the matter of executing devotional service, and one should be careful to avoid them. In the Padma Purana, it is stated that even a person whose life is completely sinful will be completely protected by the Lord if he simply surrenders unto him. So it is accepted that one who surrenders unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead becomes free from all sinful reactions. And even when a person becomes an offender unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, he can still be delivered simply by taking shelter of the holy names of the Lord. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. In other words, the chanting of Hare Krishna is beneficial for eradicating all sins, but if one becomes an offender to the holy names of the Lord, then he has no chance of being delivered. The offenses against the chanting of the holy name are as follows: to blaspheme the devotees who have dedicated their lives for propagating the holy name of the Lord, to consider the names of demigods like Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name of Lord Vishnu. Sometimes the atheistic class of men take it that any demigod is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vishnu, but one who is a devotee knows that no demigod, however great he may be, is independently as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, if someone thinks that he can chant Kali Kali or Durga Durga and it is the same as Hare Krishna, that is the greatest offense. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master, to blaspheme the Vedic literature or literature in pursuance of the Vedic version, to consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination, to give some interpretation on the holy name of the Lord, to commit sinful activities on the strength of the holy name of the Lord, to commit, it should not be taken that because by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one can be freed from all kinds of sinful reaction. One may continue to act sinfully and after that chant Hare Krishna to neutralize his sins. Such a dangerous mentality is very offensive and should be avoided. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna one of the highest auspicious ritualistic activities offered in the Vedas as fruitive activities, which is Karmakand. to instruct a faithless person about the glories of the holy name. Anyone can take part in chanting the holy name of the Lord, but in the beginning one should not be instructed about the transcendental potency of the Lord. Those who are too sinful cannot appreciate the transcendental glories of the Lord, and therefore it is better not to instruct them in this matter. And lastly, the 10th one is to not have complete faith in the chanting of the holy name and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions on this matter. Every devotee who claims to be Vaishnava must guard against these offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. We'll also read chapter number 9 today, further considerations of devotional principles. Blasphemy. One should not tolerate blasphemy of the Lord or his devotees. In this connection, in the 10th canto, 74th chapter, verse 40 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Gosvāmī tells Parikshit Maharaj, "My dear king, if a person after hearing blasphemous propaganda against the Lord and his devotees does not go away from that place, he becomes bereft of the effect of all pious activities." In one of the Lord Chaitanya's Shikshashtaka verse, it is stated that devotee should be more tolerant than the tree and more submissive than the grass. He should offer all honor to others but may not accept any honor for himself. In spite of Lord Chaitanya's being so humble and meek, as a devotee, when he was informed about the injuries inflicted on the body of Sri Nityananda, he immediately ran to the spot and wanted to kill the offenders Jagai and Madai. This behavior of Lord Chaitanya is very significant. It shows that Vaishnava may be very tolerant and meek, foregoing everything for his personal honor, but when it is question of the honor of Krishna or his devotees, he will not tolerate any insult. There are 3 ways of dealing with such insults. If someone is heard blaspheming by words, one should be so expert that he can defeat the opposing party by argument. If he is unable to defeat the opposing party, then the next step is that he should not just stand there meekly, but should give up his life. The 3rd process is followed if he is unable to execute the above mentioned 2 processes, and this is that one must leave the place and go away. If a devotee does not follow any of the above mentioned 3 processes, he falls down from his position of devotion. Tilak and Tulsi beads. In the Padma Puran, there is a statement describing how a Vaishnava should decorate his body with tilak and beads. Persons who put Tulsi around the neck, who mark 12 places of the bodies as Vishnu's temple with Vishnu symbolic representation, the 4 items held in the hand of Lord Vishnu, conch, mace, disc and lotus, and who have Vishnu tilak on their foreheads are able to be understood as the devotees of Lord Vishnu in this world. Their presence makes the world purified, and anywhere they remain, they make that place as good as Vaikuntha. A similar statement is in the Skanda Puran, which says persons who are decorated with tilak or kopi chandan, a kind of clay resembling fuller's earth, which is produced in certain quarters of Vrindavan, and who mark their bodies all over with the holy names of the Lord, and on whose neck and chest there is Tulsi beads, are never approached by Yamadutas. The Yamadutas are the constables of King Yam, the Lord of Death, who punishes all sinful men. Vaishnavas are never called for by such constable of Yamaraj. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the narration of Ajamil's deliverance, it is said that Yamaraj gave clear instructions to his assistants not to approach the Vaishnavas. Vaishnavas are beyond the jurisdiction of Yamaraj's activities. The Padma Puran also states, a person whose body is decorated with the pulp of sandalwood with paintings of the holy name of the Lord is delivered from all sinful reaction, and after his death he goes directly to Krishna Lok to live in association with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Accepting flower garlands, the next instruction is that one should put on flower garlands which are offered to the deity. In this connection, in the 11th canto, 6th chapter, verse 46 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Uddhav says to Krishna, "My dear Krishna, I have taken things which you have used and enjoyed, such as garlands of flowers, saintly articles, garments and ornaments, and I eat only the remnants of your foodstuff. Because I am your menial servant, therefore I am sure that I shall not be attacked by the spell of material energy." The purport of this verse is that for any person who simply follows these rules and regulations of decorating the body with the marks of tilak, of gopi chandan or sandalwood bulb, and who puts on the garlands which are offered to Krishna, there is no question of being conquered by the spell of material energy. At the time of death, there is no question of such a person being called by the constables of Yamaraj, even if one does not accept all the Vaishnava principles but still takes the remnants of foodstuffs offered to Krishna or Krishna Prasad. He will gradually become qualified to rise to the platform of Vaishnava. Similarly, in the Skanda Puran, Lord Brahma tells Narad, "My dear Narad, anyone who puts on his neck the flower garland which was formerly used by Krishna becomes relieved from all disease and reaction to sinful activities, and gradually he is liberated from the contamination of matter." Dancing before the deity in the Dwarka Mahatmya, the importance of dancing before the deity is stated by Lord Krishna as follows: "A person who is in jubilant spirit, who feels profound devotional ecstasy while dancing before me, and who manifests different features of bodily expressions, can burn away all the accumulated sinful reactions he has stocked up for many, many thousands of years." In the same book, there is a statement by Narad where he asserts, "From the body of any person who claps and dances before the deity, showing manifestations of ecstasy, all the birds of sinful activities fly away upward. Just as by clapping the hands one can cause many birds to fly away, similarly the birds of all sinful activities which are sitting on the body can be made to fly away simply by dancing and clapping before the deity of Krishna, bowing down in honor of the deity." In the Naradiya Puran, there is a statement about the bowing down and offering respect to the deity. It is said there, "A person who has performed a great ritualistic sacrifice and a person who has simply offered his respectful obeisances by bowing down before the Lord cannot be held as equal. The person who has executed many great sacrifices will attain the result of his pious activities, but when such results are finished, he has to take birth again on the earthly planets. However, the person who has once offered respects bowing down before the deity will not come back to this world, because he will go directly to the human abode." To the abode of Krishna, standing up to receive Lord. In the Brahmanda Puran, it is said, "A person who sees the Lord's Rath Yatra car festival and stands to receive the Lord can purge all kinds of sinful results from his body, following the deity." A similar statement is there in the Bhavishya Puran, in which it is said, "Even if born in a lowly family, a person who follows the Rath Yatra car, when the deities pass in front or from behind, will surely be elevated to the position of achieving equal opulence with Vishnu." Going to the temple of Vishnu or to the places of pilgrimage, it is stated in Purans, persons who attempt to visit the holy places of pilgrimage like Vrindavan, Mathura, or Dwarka are actually glorified by such traveling activities. They can pass over the desert of material existence. In the Hari Bhakti Subodhyaya, there is a statement about the benefit of visiting the temples of Lord Krishna, as we have explained previously in Vrindavan. Mathura and Dwarka, the system is that all the devotees take advantage of visiting various temples situated in those holy places. It is stated in Hari Bhakti Subodhya, persons who are impelled by pure devotional service to Krishna consciousness and who therefore go to see the deities of Vishnu in the temple will surely get relief from the entering again into the prison house of mother's womb. The conditioned soul forgets the trouble of living within the mother's womb during birth. It is very painful and terrible experience. In order to make an escape from this material condition, one has to visit the temple of Vishnu with devotional service. Rather, with devotional consciousness, then one can very easily get out of the miserable condition of material birth, circumambulating the temple of Vishnu. It is said that Hari Bhakti Subodhya, a person who is circumambulating the deity of Vishnu can counteract the circumambulation of repeated birth and death in this material world. The conditioned soul is circumambulating through repeated births and deaths in account of his material existence, and thus can be counteracted by the circumambulating deity and the temple. The Chaturmasya ceremony is observed during the 4 months of the rainy season in India, approximately July, August, September, October, beginning of Shravan. During these 4 months, saintly persons who are accustomed to travel from one place to another to propagate Krishna consciousness remain at one place. Usually a holy place of pilgrimage. During these times, there are certain special rules and regulations which are strictly followed. It is stated that in the Skanda Puran that during this period, if someone circumambulates the temple of Vishnu at least 4 times, it is understood that he has revealed If someone circumambulates the temple of Vishnu at least 4 times, it is understood that he has traveled all over the universe by such. By such circumambulation, one is understood to have seen all the holy places where the Ganges water is flowing, and by following the one is understood to have seen all the holy places where the Ganges water is flowing, and by following the regulative principles of Chaturmasya, one can very quickly be raised to the platform of devotional service. Archana. Archana means worship of the deity in the temple. By executing this process, one confirms himself to be not the body, but spirit, soul. In the 10th canto, 81st chapter, verse 19 of Bhagavatam, it is told that Sudama, the intimate friend of Krishna's, while going to the house of Brahmana, murmured to himself, simply by worshipping Krishna, one can easily achieve all the results of heavenly opulence, liberation, supremacy over the planetary systems of the universe, all the opulences of this material world, and the mystic power of performing the yoga system. The events leading to the Sudama's murmuring this statement are as follows. Sri Krishna had ordered his friend Sudama to go to the Brahmana's house and ask for some food. The Brahmanas were performing a great sacrifice, and Sri Krishna told Sudama to plead with them, and they will. The Brahmins were performing great sacrifice, and Sri Krishna told Sudama to plead with them that he and Balram were feeling hungry and needed some food. When Sudama went there, the Brahmins refused to offer anything, but the wives of the Brahmins, upon hearing their childless that he and Balram were feeling hungry and needed some food. When Sudama went there, the Brahmanas refused to offer anything, but the wives of the Brahmanas, upon hearing that Sri Krishna wanted some foodstuff, immediately took many palatable dishes and went to offer them to Sri Krishna, but the Vishnu. When Sudama went there, the Brahmanas refused to offer anything, but the wives of the Brahmanas, upon hearing Sri Krishna wanted some foodstuff, immediately took many palatable dishes and went to offer them to Sri Krishna in the Vishnu Rahasya Bandha. But the wives of the Brahmins, upon hearing that Krishna wanted some foodstuff, immediately took many palatable dishes and went to offer them to Krishna. In the Vishnu Rahasya also it is stated, any person within this world who is engaged in the worship of Vishnu can very easily achieve the ever blissful kingdom of God known as Vaikuntha Lok. Rendering service to the Lord, it is stated in the Vishnu Rahasya, any person who can arrange for the service of the Lord in the same way that a king is given service by his attendants is surely elevated to the abode of Krishna after death. Actually, in India, the temples are just like the royal palaces. They are not ordinary buildings because the roof worship of the Krishna actually, attendants elevated to the abode of Krishna after death. Actually, in India, the temples are just like royal palaces. These are not ordinary buildings because the worship of Krishna should be performed in just the way the king is worshipped in his palace. So in Vrindavan, there are many hundreds of temples where the deity is worshipped exactly like king. In the Naradiya Purana, it is stated, if a person stays in the Lord's temple even for a few moments, he can surely achieve the transcendental kingdom of Lord. The conclusion is that those who are rich men in the society should construct beautiful temples and arrange for the worship of Vishnu so that the people may be attracted for such temples and lost it. Okay, I'll read this again. The conclusion is that those who are rich men in society should construct beautiful temples and arrange for the worship of Vishnu so that the people may be attracted to visit such temples and thereby offered the opportunity of dancing before the Lord or chanting the holy name of the Lord. In this way, everyone will be given the chance to elevate themselves to the kingdom of Lord. In other words, even a common man, simply by visiting such a temple, will be able to attain the highest benedictions, not to mention the devotees in full Krishna consciousness. In this connection, there are statements in the form of Canto. Excuse me. In this connection, there is a statement in the 4th canto, 21st chapter, 31st verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein King Prithu says to his subjects, "My dear citizens, please note that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is actually the deliverer of all fallen souls, conditioned souls. No demigod not to mention the devotees who are constantly engaged in the service of the Lord in full Krishna consciousness." In this connection, there is a statement in the 4th canto, 21st chapter, verse 31 in the Srimad Bhagavatam, where King Prithu says to his subjects, "My dear citizens, please note that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Hari, is actually the deliverer of all fallen souls, conditioned souls. No demigod can perform this act of delivering the conditioned souls because the demigods themselves are conditioned. A conditioned soul cannot deliver another conditioned soul. Only Krishna or his bona fide spiritual representative can deliver him. The Ganges water which is flowing down the toe from Lord Vishnu falls upon the earthly planet and the other planets and thereby deliver all the conditioned sinful living entities. So what need is there to speak of the deliverance of a person who are always engaged in the service of the Lord? There is no doubt about their liberation, even if they have stocks of sinful activities from many, many births. In other words, a person who is engaged in the service of the deities can minimize his stock of sinful reactions coming from many, many previous births. This process of worshipping the deity has already been described, and one should try to follow these rules and regulations seriously. Singing. In the Linga Purana, this statement about glorifying the singing about the Lord, it is said that a Brahman who is constantly engaged in the singing the glories of the Lord is surely elevated to the same planet as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Krishna appreciates this singing even more than the prayers offered by Lord Shiva. Sankirtan, when a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc., his chanting, it is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan also refers to the congregational chanting of the holy name of the Lord. In the Vishnu Purana, when a person loudly chants the glories of the Lord's activities, qualities, form, etc. His chanting is called Sankirtan. Sankirtan refers to the congregation chanting the holy name of the Lord. In the Vishnu Dharma, there is a statement glorifying this process of congregational chanting. My dear king, this word Krishna is so auspicious that anyone who chants his name, holy name gets rid of the resultant activities from many births. That is a fact. There is the following statement in Chaitanya Charitamrita: the person who chants the holy name of the Krishna once can counteract the resultant actions of more than one sinful activities than he is able to perform. A sinful man can perform many sinful activities, but he is unable to perform so many that they cannot be wiped out by one single uttering of Krishna. In the 7th canto, 9th chapter, in the 7th canto, 9th chapter, verse 18 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Maharaj Prahlad offers the following praise to the Lord. My dear Lord Nrsimha, if I can be elevated to the position of your servant, then it will be possible for me to hear about your activities. You are the supreme friend, the supreme worshipful deity. Your pastimes are transcendental, and you're simply by hearing of them you can counteract. You are the supreme friend, the supreme worshipful deity. Your pastimes are transcendental, and you by simply hearing of them one can counteract all his sinful activities. Therefore, I shall not care for those whose sinful activities, because simply by hearing about those pastimes of yours, I shall get out of all the contamination of material attachment, not Mahamantra. There are many songs about the Lord's activities. For example, there is Brahma Samhita sung by Lord Brahma, Narad Pancharatika sung by Lord so they are coming down many millions of years ago. So if these songs are heard by any person, he can also get out of the clutches of material contamination. There should be no difficulty in hearing these songs of God. They are coming down from many millions of years ago. So why at this time one should not take full advantage and thus become liberated? In the 1st canto, 5th chapter, verse 22 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni tells his disciple Vyasdev, my dear Vyas, you should know that the person who are engaged in sexual Mighty Vyas, you should know that persons who are engaged in executing austerities and penances, studying the Vedas, performing big sacrifices, chanting the hymns of the Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, and performing charitable functions, Mighty Vyas, you should know that persons who are engaged in executing austerities and penances, studying the Vedas, performing big sacrifice, chanting hymns of the Vedas, speculating on transcendental knowledge, and performing charitable functions have all for their auspicious activities simply to gain a Lord is the ultimate activity of the living entities. Japa. Chanting a mantra or hymn softly and slowly is called japa, and chanting the same mantra loudly is called kirtan. For example, uttering the Maha Mantra Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare very softly only for one's own hearing is called japa. Chanting the Maha Mantra loudly for being heard by the others is called kirtan. The Mahamantra can be used for japa and kirtan also. When japa is practiced, it is for the personal benefit of the chanter, but when kirtan is performed, it is for the benefit of all others who may hear. In the Padma Puran, there is a statement for any person who is chanting the holy name, either softly or loudly, the paths to liberation and even heavenly happiness are at once open. Submission. In the Skanda Puran, there is a statement about submission unto the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said there that those who are sober devotees can offer their submission to Krishna in the following 3 ways. Samprarthanatmika, very feelingly offering prayers. Daino Vidhika, humbly submitting oneself. Lalasmai, desiring some perfectional stage. This desiring some perfectional stage in spiritual life is not sense gratification. If one realizes something of his constitutional relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he understands his original position and wants to be reinstated in this position, either as a friend, servant, parent or conjugal lover of Krishna. This is called lalasmai, or very eagerly desiring to go to one's natural position. This lalasmai stage of submission comes in the stage of perfect liberation, which is technically called Swarup Siddhi, when the living entity understands by perfect spiritual advancement and revelation his original relationship with the Lord. In the Padma Puran, there is a statement of submission in feeling by devotee praying to the Lord. My Lord, I know that young girls have natural affection for young boys and that young boys have natural affection for young girls. I'm praying at your lotus feet that my mind may become attracted unto you in the same spontaneous way. The example is very appropriate when a young boy or girl sees a member of the opposite sex. There is a natural attraction without the need for any introduction, without any training. There is a natural attraction. This is a material example, but the devotee is praying that he may develop a similar spontaneous attachment for the Supreme Lord, free from any desire for profit and without any other cause. This natural attraction for the Lord is the perfectional stage of self-realization. In the same Padma Puran, there is a statement about submission and humbleness. It is stated that, my dear Lord, there is no sinful living entity who is more of a sinner than myself, nor there is a greater offender than myself. I am so greatly sinful and offensive that when I come to confess my sinful activities before you, I am ashamed. This is a natural position for a devotee. As far as the conditioned soul is concerned, there is no wonder that he has some sinful activities in his past life, and this should be admitted and confessed before the Lord. As soon as this is done, the Lord excuses the sincere devotee, but that does not mean that one should take advantage of the Lord's causeless mercy and expect to be excused over and over again while he commits the same sinful activities. Such a mentality is only for shameless persons. Here it is clearly said, when I come to confess my sinful activities, I become ashamed. So if a person is not ashamed of his sinful activities and continues to commit the same sinful activities with the knowledge that the Lord will excuse him, that is the most nonsensical proposition. Such an idea is not accepted in any part of the Vedic literature. It is a fact that by chanting the holy name of the Lord, one becomes washed clean of all sinful activities from his past life, but that does not mean that after being washed off, one should again begin sinful activities and expect to be washed again. These are nonsensical propositions and are not admitted in this devotional service. Someone may think, for a whole week I may commit sinful activities, and for one day I will go to the temple or church and admit my sinful activities so that I can become washed off and again begin my sinning. This is most nonsensical and offensive and is not acceptable to the author of Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. In the Narad Pancharatra, there is a statement of submission accompanied by the desire for perfection. The devotee says, my dear Lord, when shall that day come when you will ask me to fan your body, and according to your pleasure you will say, you just fan me in this way. The idea in this verse is that the devotee is desiring to personally fan the body of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means he is desiring to become the personal associate of the Supreme Lord. Of course, any devotee in any capacity, either as a servant, friend, or conjugal lover, always has direct association with the Lord, but according to his different individual tastes, a person desires for just one of these relationships. Here the devotee is desiring to become a servant of the Lord and desires to fan the Lord, as does his internal energy Lakshmi, that goddess of fortune. He also wishes that the personality of Godhead will be pleased to give him directions as to how to fan this submission with transcendental desire, or Lalasmai Vijnapati is the highest perfectional stage of spiritual realization. In the same Narad Pancharatra, there is another expression of submission wherein the devotee says, "My dear Lord, O lotus-eyed one, when will that day come? When on the bank of the Yamuna I shall become just like a madman and continue to chant your holy name while incessant tears flow from my eyes." This is another perfectional stage. Lord Chaitanya also desired that a moment will appear unto me as 12 years of time, and the whole world will appear to me as vacant on account of not seeing you, my dear Lord. One should feelingly pray and become eager to render his particular type of service to the Lord. This is the teaching of all great devotees, especially Lord Chaitanya. In other words, one should learn how to cry for the Lord. One should learn this small technique, and he should be very eager and actually cry to become engaged in some type of service. This is called laulyam, and such tears are the price for the highest perfection. If one develops this laulyam or excessive eagerness for meeting and serving the Lord in a particular way, that is the price to enter into the kingdom of Lord. Otherwise, there is no material calculation for the value of the ticket by which one can enter the kingdom of Lord. The only price for such entrance is this laulyam, lalasmai, or desire and great eagerness. Reciting notable prayers. According to great learned scholars, the whole Bhagavad-Gita contains many authorized prayers, especially in the 11th chapter where Arjuna prays to the universal form of the Lord. Similarly, in the Gautamiya Tantra, all the verses are called prayers. Again, in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are hundreds of prayers to the Lord. So a devotee should select some of these prayers for his recitation. In Skanda Puran, the glories of these prayers are stated as follows. Devotees whose tongues are decorated always with prayers to Lord Krishna are always given respect even by the great saintly persons and sages, and such devotees are actually worshipable by the demigods. Those who are less intelligent want to worship different demigods for some material gain rather than worship Krishna. But here it is stated that a devotee who is always engaged in offering prayers to the Lord is worshipable even by the demigods themselves. The pure devotees have nothing to ask from any demigod. Rather, the demigods are anxious to offer prayers to the pure devotees. In the Nrsimha Puran, it is stated, any person who comes before the deity of Lord Krishna and begins to chant different prayers is immediately relieved from all the recitations of sinful activities and becomes eligible without any doubt to enter into the Vaikuntha Lok. Partaking of prasad, there is this specific statement in the Padma Puran, a person who honors the prasad and regularly eats it not exactly in front of the deity along with the Charnamrit, the water offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, which are mixed with the seeds of the Tulsi tree, immediately can achieve the results of the pious activities which are obtained through 10,000 performances of sacrificial rites. Drinking Charnamrit. Charnamrit is obtained in the morning while the Lord is being washed before dressing. The scented with perfumes and flowers, the water comes gliding down through his lotus feet and is collected and mixed with yogurt. In this way, this Charnamrit not only becomes very tastefully flavored, but also has tremendous spiritual value. As described in the Padma Puran, even a person who has never been able to give in charity, who has never been able to perform a great sacrifice, who has never been able to study the Vedas, who has never been able to worship the Lord, or in other words, even one who has never done any pious activities will become eligible to enter into the kingdom of God if he simply drinks the Charnamrit which is kept in the temple. In the temple, it is a custom that the Charnamrit be kept in a big pot. The devotees who come to visit and offer respects to the deity take 3 drops of Charnamrit very submissively and feels themselves happy in transcendental bliss, smelling the incense and flowers offered to the deities. In the Hari Bhakti Subodhya, there is a statement about the incense which is offered in the temple. When the devotees smell the good flavor of the incense which is offered to the deity, they thus become cured of the poisonous effects of material contamination. As much as one becomes cured of a snake bite by smelling the prescribed medicinal herbs. The explanation of this verse is that there is an herb found in the jungles which persons know how to use to revive the consciousness of one who is bitten by a snake. Simply by smelling that herb, one becomes immediately relieved of the poisonous effects of the snake bite. The same example is applicable when a person comes to visit the temple and smells the incense offered to the deity. He is cured at that time from his material contamination. Any devotee coming to the temple should always offer something to the deities: fruit, flowers, incense, etc. If one cannot offer anything in cash, something else must be offered. In India, the system is that all the ladies and gentlemen who come in the morning to visit temple bring so many things. Even one morsel of rice or one morsel of flour can be offered. It is a regulative principle that one should not go to see a saintly person or the deity in the temple without any offering. The offering may be very humble or it may be priceless. Even a flower, a little fruit, a little water, whatever is possible must be offered. So when a devotee comes to offer something to the deity in the morning, he is sure to smell the good flavor of the incense, and then at once he will become cleansed of the poisonous effect of material existence. It is stated in the Tantra Shastra, if the smell of the garland which was offered to the deity in the temple enters into the person's nostrils, immediately his bondage to sinful activities becomes cleared. And even if one has no sinful activities, still by smelling such remnants of flowers, one can advance from Mayavadi impersonalist to devotee. There are several instances of this, a prime one being the advancement of 4 Kumars. They were impersonalist Mayavadis, but after smelling the remnants of flowers and incense in the temple, they turned to become devotees. From the above verse, it appears that the Mayavadis or impersonalists are more or less contaminated. They are not pure. It is confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, one who has not washed off all reactions of sinful activities cannot be pure devotee. A pure devotee has no more doubts about the supremacy of the personality of Godhead, and thus he engages himself in Krishna consciousness and devotional service. A similar statement is in the Agastya Samhita. Just to purify the impurities of our nostrils, we should try to smell the remnants of flowers offered to Krishna in the temple, touching the deity. In the Vishnu Dharmottara, there is a statement about touching the lotus feet of the Lord. It is said, only a person who is initiated as a Vaishnava and is executing devotional service in Krishna consciousness has the right to touch the body of the deity. In India, there was agitation during Gandhi's political movement because the low-born classes of men like street sweepers and chandals are prohibited, according to the Vedic system, from entering the temple due to their unclean habits. They are prohibited, but at the same time they are given other facilities so they may be elevated to the highest grade of the devotional service by association with pure devotees. A man born in any family is not barred, but he must be cleansed. That cleansing process must be adopted. Gandhi wanted to make them clean simply by stamping them with fictitious name Harijan, or the children of our God, and there was a great tug of war between the temple owners and Gandhi's followers. But anyway, the present law is the law of all scriptures, that if anyone is purified, he can enter into the temple. Actually, that is the position. Only one who is properly initiated, who is properly following the rules and regulations, can enter and touch the deity, not all. And one who touches the body of the deity following such regulative principles is immediately delivered from the contamination of material sins, and all his desires become fulfilled without delay. Seeing the deity. In the Varaha Puran, there is a statement praising the seeing of the deity of Sri Krishna in the temple. A devotee says there, my dear Vasundhara, any person who goes to Vrindavan and sees the deity of Govind Dev is free from the courthouse of Yamaraj and is allowed to enter into the highest planetary system in which reside the demigods. This means that even an ordinary person who goes to Vrindavan out of inquisitiveness and by chance sees the temple, especially that of Govind Dev, even if he is not elevated to the spiritual kingdom, is still assured promotion to the higher planetary systems. This means that simply by visiting the deity of Govinda in Vrindavan, one becomes highly elevated in pious life. Observing Aarti and celebrations of the Lord. In the Skanda Puran, there is a following description of the result of seeing Aarti, of the worship of the deity. If someone sees the face of the Lord while Arati is going on, he can be relieved of all sinful reactions coming from many, many thousands and millions of years past. He is even excused from the killing of a Brahman or similar prohibited activities. As we have already explained, there are different ceremonies to be observed, such as the birthday of Krishna, the birthday of Lord Ramchandra, the birthday of some prominent Vaishnavas, the ceremony of Jhulan Yatra, and the Lord sitting on a swing, and Dola Yatra, the Lord's activities in the month of March. In all festivities, the Lord is seated on a car, and the car moves through different streets of the city so that people may take advantage of visiting the Lord. In Bhavishya Puran, it is said, in such a ceremony, even a chandal or a dog eater, simply out of curiosity, sees the Lord on the cart. He becomes counted as one of the associates of Vishnu. In the Agni Puran, it is stated, any person who in gladness sees the worship of deity in the temple will obtain the result of Kriya Yoga, which is described in the Pancharattra scripture. Kriya Yoga is a system of practice much like practical devotional service, but it is especially meant for the mystic yogis. In other words, by this gradual process, the mystic yogis are eventually elevated to the devotional service of the Lord. So we'll continue reading from chapter 10 next time. Thank you for joining. Hari Om Tat Sat. Hare Krishna.